Hey, it's DePomps here from EMSC for Minnesota, and today we're at the Poison Control Center, and I'm joined with Kirk Hughes here, so thank you for being with us here today, because this month is Poison Awareness Month, correct?
Poison Prevention Week is next week.
Next week?
But we kind of take the whole month, so.
Yeah, why not, right?
Every day should be Poison Prevention Week, right? Or every Poison Prevention Days.
My background as a pediatric emergency medicine physician, I've definitely called the Poison Center a lot for various cases, not even just medications or ingestions, but even products. We've talked about there's different products you guys have had to call about, or right?
I think that there's a misconception about the Poison Center that it's only just for kids and it's just medications or household products. And we offer so much more. We staff with pharmacists at our Poison Center here in Minnesota, which is a huge advantage, because if you happen to be started on a new medication, which doctors seem to like to do on Fridays, and then it interacts with something and they have a weird kind of reaction to it and their doctor's not available, they call the nurse line. The nurse lines are not capable of taking that kind of question, so they roll them over to us. So we do chemicals, we do household products, drugs of abuse, unfortunately, because there's a lot of those out there, and when people use them, they sometimes leave them out. Over-the-counter medications, prescription medications, just about anything under the sun. We even do things like water beads. And water beads aren't toxic, but nobody else knows what to do with them.
You can even monitor people at home, right? They don't even always have to be sent to an emergency room or things like that, right?
Right. That's the strength of the Poison Center. Is unbeknownst to a lot of people, about a third of the physicians that manage an overdose, chemical exposure, that kind of stuff, go in the back room unbeknownst to the people, and they call us, and then they come back out saying, hey, yeah, well, this is what I think we should happen. They're going to be fine. Yeah. When poison control is actually kind of guiding that.
Let's say your child does get into something, or you're worried about them. We say call poison right away. Like don't Google. But also we don't want people to induce vomiting or drink a bunch of water. Or, I don't know if there's other things you've seen in your career that people have done, but we really just want to make sure to use this resource and call and get the guidance about what to do. Correct?
Yeah. Before you do anything, please call us first. There's this misconception, this kind of urban myth that vomiting is going to get it out. And they've actually done studies with people. They gave them like 100 placebo tablets. They induced vomiting immediately, and the best they got back was 40 out of 100 tablets. So that's under the best clinical circumstances. So you're not generally going to get, if somebody ingested two, you may get one back, but there's still one in you. And the other thing about it is a lot of times, moms and dads intend to induce vomiting by putting the finger in the mouth. And a lot of times, unlike me, who has a little nubs, some ladies have sharp fingernails, some guys too. But when you put them in the back, there's lots of big blood vessels that are in the back there. You can easily lacerate one of those and cause a whole other problem. They can actually bleed to death. So
sure. Thinking of families or things we can do to help keep kids safe in the homes, being that it is Prevention Week coming up, we've talked a lot about, but like either keeping it up high and out of sight, right, or down low and locked up. But you also have some other things that you can consider, because I think the other misconception is that bottles that aren't really child-proof, right? They're child-resistant. Yeah. You gave like study numbers that were pretty insane to know that they're not going to keep many kids out of things.
Right.
Really.
So here's a good example. This is a child-resistant cap. Nothing is child-proof. Okay. And the way that the Consumer Product Safety Commission tests these is they get 4-year-old little Billies and Susies, and if it takes less than 20 of them to open it in 10 minutes, they bless that as being child-resistant. So that means that if something is child-resistant, that out of 100 children, 19 of them or less could get into this within 10 minutes. You have medications at home, and maybe you have somebody living with you that's on a lot of different medications that are prescription. You can get one of these boxes, and you can get these online. They're fairly affordable. They do lock. You can change the combination on them. Even if you went to Walmart, you can go ahead and get these. Kind of like if you have a garage sale, you get the one that locks. Those work fine. They're about $10, $12.
Right.
And put your medications in there.
What are some things we should know when we're calling? So, and especially making sure products are in their original bottles too for that purpose.
Very good point. We get a lot of calls, especially from ladies who like to put their Tylenol and their ibuprofen and baggies in their purses.
Yeah, especially if you're traveling. I've been guilty of that.
Yeah, right? 100%. It's easy to do. It's convenient, right? Mm-hmm. And knowing your child's weights. One of the good ways to do that is taking your last child's wellness visit and just posting on the refrigerator. And it's good too if you have babysitters, because if they call, I love hearing from babysitters. Even though they're scared to death, and they're scared to death of the parents coming home, oh my God, that kind of stuff. It shows responsibility.
Yeah. Now too, with the legalization of marijuana, we're seeing a lot of those edible products look very similar. And so I think and that too, being a weight-based, kids they'll eat too much of it, right? Because it's...
Well, so this is Delta 8. These are chewables. These are not technically legal in Minnesota, but Delta 9 edibles are, which is THC. So this is 30 milligrams. And I can tell you that a half one of these will go ahead and cause me, as an adult weighing 214 pounds, to feel a little something. Not a lot, but a little something, okay?
Right.
If I were to have tried it, maybe. But, so I'll just think of a little kid getting into this.
Right.
And so this brings up a good point. Everybody assumes that since it's been legalized in Minnesota that it's safe. Well, here's one thing. By Minnesota state law, Delta 9 is not supposed to have more than 5 milligrams per gummy and not more than 10 gummies per container. Okay?
Yep.
There's nobody here watching the chicken's head, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So the state of Minnesota does not have anybody to enforce this or test the potency of it. And so we get a lot of calls and a lot of kids that get into this.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, these have never been FDA approved. They're still
Right.
Schedule 1 in the United States. Taking too much THC as an adult, we see people getting transported because they get very paranoid.
Yeah.
Paranoid to the point where they have to go to a hospital.
Yep.
I mean,
We see it even in teenagers.
yeah, in
sometimes.
teenagers,
Yeah.
yep, they take too much of the edibles. Now, maybe not smoking it, but here's the difference between edible and smoking. When you smoke it, you can titrate your high because it crosses into your blood-brain,
Okay.
crosses your blood-brain barrier. It affects you within just seconds or minutes.
Yep.
When you eat this, it's like taking Tylenol. If your back hurts, you take a couple Tylenol. It's going to take a while because you got to ingest it. It's got to go in your stomach. It's got to dissolve, go through your liver, and then get into your brain, and then give you maybe 60 to 90 minutes later some back relief if it works at all.
Mhm.
That's with this. Plus, in addition, it changes from THC to 11-hydroxyl THC, which is more psychoactive and much longer acting. You can't take it back, sometimes for hours, up to 24 hours sometimes. And we've also found in kids that we've seen seizures or seizure-like activity.
Yeah.
We've also seen them have decreased respirations or stop breathing. And we've tested their blood and found that there's only THC in their systems and it's not due to anything else. So not safe for children.
No, absolutely not.
Any parent that calls us or anybody that calls us about a kid who's ingested this and they have edible THC marijuana types things, cannabis, we send them in every single time because we have to, because they can stop breathing.
I mean, there's things we don't know, right? And again, they're not FDA regulated, so you don't really know what you're getting often when they're getting into these things. And people, different states have different legalization of things, so people can go across state borders and bringing other products in that kids could be
100%.
exposed or teenagers could get into. And so I think it's a different time. It's an interesting time because there's a lot of new changes, but we are definitely seeing it. I mean, I think the data would show a huge increase in even ER visits of these exposures, and you've probably seen the calls reflective of that too. So
I can tell you every shift that I work, there's at least 1 or 2 pediatric patients under 6 that get into the edibles and have to be hospitalized, or at least go to an ER and maybe watch there. And if it lasts longer than like 6 hours, then they have to be admitted sometimes, right?
Yep,
Because
absolutely.
the ERs are so busy.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't have the ability to just hold in the ED to kind of do the observation period sometimes. And I think it's something too for clinicians that maybe don't do pediatrics a lot. If you have an altered child presenting, something to be on the differential now. It's not,
Right.
I think it's become something we often are screening for. And I know urine drug screens aren't perfect, but when you have people who may not always be forthcoming with the information, so I think as family, they don't even know it's there because it's somebody they're visiting that has it in their, in their product. So I think it's always something just to have in the forefront of how they might be presenting with that seizure, in an otherwise healthy kid, or the somnolent kid who's not arousing.
You'll never go wrong with no matter what it is. If it's toxic, whether it's a cleaning product, over-the-counter prescription, or things like this, is up high and out of sight, but preferably down low and locked up, preferably in something like this. Easy, cheap, affordable. Yeah, it takes a few seconds to get into it, but you know what? It's a little inconvenient, but it's better than having your kid go to the emergency room.
Right.
So, and one more thing I want to say.
Yes.
So Easter's coming up, right?
Oh, yes.
And who's coming to see the kids?
Grandparents.
Grandparents. Who's the most dangerous people to have around your children?
Oh, I know from you, Kirk. Grandparents.
Grandparents. Well, and they love them more than the parents do. They just forget though. They'll, let's say they don't, maybe they haven't been around little kids for a long time. They come to visit. They're coming up from Florida where they've been wintering over. They bring their pills. They bring Billy over. Now, Billy, come here,
Monday, Wednesday, pill boxes.
And the pill liners, and it's sitting there, and they're like, no, Billy, don't touch these because they give you always, and Grandma doesn't want to have you get always. And and they believe him. They're like, he's 4, he's going to be a neurosurgeon. He's smart. He doesn't lie. We want to think, the grandparents want to think the best. They walk away, and of course, these are pretty. And it's like, ooh, pretty. Grandma won't mind one. And you take one, and hopefully it's not that, 240 milligram diltiazem that one pill can kill.
Right. A really good reminder, and one I've even brought up with my parents when they're visiting, because I've found that they've dropped a pill, right, and don't always pick it up. So I think it's just having that awareness that even though it's been prescribed to you and you think maybe it's safe, again, in a pediatric standpoint or in a young child, that dose could be very life-threatening.
Right.
And so again, using those references and making sure you know what is even there. So if you are visiting, what medications might even be in your pill box, because we've definitely had calls I've had where you're almost looking at pill finders to figure out what is the blue pill
And they'll
with
say, well,
the,
it's my water pill. Well, there's 14
Yeah.
different kinds of water pills, or
yeah,
you could be like my dad when he was still alive. He just carried everything and he updated his thing and he just opened it up and give it to you. And we know exactly what milligram strength and what he's on, kind of thing. So
yeah. The point of this is really just to try to be safe and make some decisions that can hopefully avoid all of that to happen. And I really appreciate you having us here today, and I get to kind of shine on you guys because we do really appreciate this resource for our state, and also North Dakota and South Dakota can be used. And again, no matter who you are and in what capacity you have an issue, just call Poison Control, 1-800-222-1222.
that's it.
Right?
Please call.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Nice
thank
to
you.
meet